Hello and welcome to this tutorial. Today I want to show you how you can make abstract duplicated shapes inspired by the After Effects plugin called Tau. I'm going to use a Fusion composition. Mine is 12 seconds long. Let's just open this in Fusion. The first thing that we need to add is a shape. This is going to be the shape that will be duplicated on the path. The standard Tau shape that's used in the plugin is a sphere with a bit less subdivisions. So let's set it to sphere and let's reduce these subdivisions. So that's basically what we need, but there's a lot of smoothing. So to get rid of the smoothing, add a replace normals node. We can bring down the smoothing angle to 0. So now it will be hard cuts between the subdivisions. Also, something that we should fix right away is that this shape is not aligned to the grid. It's easier if we rotate it 45 degrees on Y, so it's perfectly aligned. The way that this will work, we will just keyframe position and that will create the path. And then we will use a duplicate 3D node and time offset the duplicates, essentially creating a trail. So let's just start by adding a transform 3D node. We can call this path. Let's just animate it. Let's set keyframes at 0, go to frame 200. So now what we have to do is add some in the middle to create our shape. And you can add as many individual steps as you want. And don't worry, it will be smoother later. This is just for now to roughly make the shape that we want. And don't move them too far apart from each other because we want it to have a monotone speed. Because if it doesn't have a monotone speed, then some duplicates will be more spaced out than others, which will look bad. Alright, then let's smooth the path first of all. We'll go into spline, tick show only selected tool, because then it's really easy. You will only see what you select in the node graph. And then let's hit S for smooth. And now you can already see in the viewer, the path has become a lot smoother. Okay, so now what we need to do is in the original Tau plugin, the shape is oriented along the path. A trick that we can use is we enable target. And now we have this target point right here. It will always look on the target. We can make use of that by just setting the target slightly in front of the path position where it is right now. So you can just use an expression and that will be linked in the description and I will also show it on the screen right now. Honestly, I generated it with Claude. I just told it what I need. So I'm just going to paste it in. Basically what it's doing is it's taking the value of the translation and then it's offsetting it in time. Alright, so now we have that. One thing I want to also mention is if you want to adjust these points, it's a bit tricky because you can see it's causing a bit of bugs. Or not bugs, but it's making it harder to navigate. If you want to refine the path later, we can just disable this again and now you can select them like usual. And next, let's create the duplicates. First of all, let's make this a bit smaller. If we want to have more duplicates, I think it will look a bit weird if they are this big. So let's maybe set it to 0.25. Alright, and then let's add the duplicate 3D node and let's first bump up the copies to maybe 50 copies. Now you can see the magic happens when we adjust the time offset. Let's just set it to 2 for now. Maybe 4. Now let's go with 5. But we still have a problem, which is they are stacking a bit, and that is because we didn't loop it yet. We need to loop the path animation so that they always flow endlessly. So let's just select the path, go into the spline, make sure we select the path keyframes that we made, right click and set loop, and we also need a pre-loop so that they are always flowing. But we still have one problem, which is they just appear, and in my opinion that looks kind of weird. So to fix that we can just make them scale up and then at the end we make them scale down. So that is really simple to do. We just need to keyframe the scale at the start and at the end and in the middle again. At the end and start it has to be 0. And now we already have exactly what we want. But I think they're scaling down a bit too early. Let's just fix that by adjusting the easing. So let's select the scale parameter in the spline and let's bring these handles outwards so that it takes less time for them to scale up. Actually, maybe let's make this even shorter. Yeah, I think that is better. Now you can see at the end they disappeared again. And that is because we didn't loop the scale. So we also have to loop this. And we should also set, oh no, actually that is up to you. If you don't set a pre-loop, you can see we get this really nice animation. What I'm going to do right now is if you enable the pre-loop, they will be spawned in right from the start. So that is up to you. The next thing you could do, I'm going to link this fuse in the description. It's called Time 3D. Basically, you can use it to retime the 3D space. So it's like the time stretcher, but for 3D. So in order to retime this, you can just keyframe it, or in this case, I want to make it slower. So I'm just going to add an expression and type in time times 0.2. So that is an easy way to make it slower, and you don't have to readjust the path or play with duplicates again or the time offset. So that fuse really makes it easier to adjust. It makes it also slower, but I think it's worth it. So next we just need to render it and maybe add some lights. So let's start by adding a renderer 3D. We also need a camera because you can see it's out of frame. Let's just bring that back. And you can also add a transform here to simply resize it and reposition it the way you want. I think this is kind of cool. Obviously you see we don't have any lighting. So let's just press Shift Space and add a directional light and an ambient light. And let's connect them to the scene. In order to see them, we need to enable the lighting. So the ambient light, I usually like to place it at 0.2 or 0.1. And the directional light, I want to have it coming from the top. So let's just play with it with the X rotation. So maybe like that. Now let's add the Ambient Occlusion, which will add a bit more shadow in between them and give them a lot more depth. Let's add it after the renderer. And the Ambient Occlusion is a bit special. It kind of fakes global illumination, so gives a similar look to the shadows as if they were ray traced. The Ambient Occlusion node needs the camera input. And in the renderer, we have to give it the Z channel and the normal channel. So basically the depth information, which is the Z, and then the normals is in which way the surfaces are facing. The Ambient Occlusion has two different modes, the color mode or the AO mode. Color is showing it on top of the render, and AO is just showing the ambient occlusion basically. And using the kernel radius, we can say how big the radius should be. And then using the gamma, we can make them more dense. And then let's set it back to color. But one problem with ambient occlusion is we can't get rid of the jagged edges. So the better approach is to double the resolution. So let's just type a star and then 2, multiply it by 2. And then after the ambient occlusion, we just downscale it again. So for that, there's a really handy node called the scale node, and we can just type in the multiplier. I'm using 0.5, so here we scaled it up times 2, and then we are going back to the original. Yeah, that's basically it. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Oh, actually no, I want to show you a few more tricks that are really cool. You can choose any shape you want here. So you could also make it based on planes, which I think also looks really cool. Or you could also make it cubes. Of course, spheres like that. For rounder stuff, it's better to disable the replace normals so that we get the smooth shading again. Torus also looks kind of cool. Cone or cylinder. So yeah, you can get some really unique looks just by changing the shapes. So yeah, anyways, hope you enjoyed the video and see you in the next one.